I'm Rosabelle, 25 years old, born and raised in a conservative family in small-town Michigan. My parents had my life mapped out since before I could walk. Dad, a successful surgeon, and Mom, a former lawyer, expected nothing less than medical school. But secretly since high school, I'd been coding apps at night while they thought I was studying anatomy. They never understood my passion until that rainy night they discovered I'd dropped out of med school and threw me out of our home. Before I share how I went from sleeping in my car to signing a life-changing 1.5 million contract, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to choose between family expectations and your own dreams. Growing up in Westfield, Michigan shaped everything about me. Our town was small enough that everyone knew everyone, and my family had deep roots there. My father, Thomas, was the most respected surgeon at Westfield Memorial, following 3 generations of doctors before him. My mother, Diana, had been a corporate lawyer in Detroit, before giving it all up to raise me their only child. From the beginning, I felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on my shoulders. Our 2-story colonial house on Maple Street was picture-perfect from the outside, just like our family was supposed to be. Inside those walls, excellence wasn't celebrated, it was expected. B-plus grades weren't congratulated, they were questioned. "What happened to the other points?" Dad would ask, flipping through my report card. Everything in our home was structured around achievement. Dinner conversations centered around Dad's surgeries or the accomplishments of the doctor's kids I was constantly compared to. Sarah Matthews is taking 3 AP classes next year, or Michael Henderson got accepted to a summer program at Johns Hopkins. The unspoken message was clear I needed to keep up. My interest in technology started when I was 12. Uncle Robert, Mom's younger brother and the family rebel who worked for a tech startup in Chicago, gave me my first computer for my birthday. My parents allowed it, but only because they thought it would help with schoolwork. Little did they know that after finishing my homework each night, I'd stay up until 1 or 2 in the morning teaching myself to code. JavaScript, Python, C++. I devoured tutorials and forums, learning everything I could. Those quiet hours with just me and my computer screen became my sanctuary. I still remember my first successful program, a simple calculator app. Nothing special, but I'd built it myself. The thrill of creation was unlike anything I'd ever experienced in my parents' carefully curated world of academic achievements. By the time I reached high school, I had a system in place. I maintained perfect grades to keep my parents satisfied while secretly developing small apps. A simple scheduling tool I created for students to track homework assignments gained popularity at school. Teachers even started recommending it, unaware that the RA solutions they praised was just me using my initials. My secret double life continued throughout high school. I graduated as valedictorian, which pleased my parents immensely. They beamed with pride at graduation, Dad in his best suit, and Mom dabbing tears as I gave my speech. That day, I almost told them about my passion for coding, seeing how happy they were. But when Dad introduced me to his colleague as our future surgeon, the words died in my throat. I earned a full scholarship to Westridge University, a prestigious school known for its medical program. My parents threw a lavish party inviting everyone they knew to celebrate their daughter following the predetermined path to medical greatness. During my freshman year, I continued the charade, taking all the required pre-med courses while sneaking in a computer science class as an elective. That's where I met Professor Jackson, who changed everything. After reviewing my first coding assignment, she asked me to stay after class. "You've done this before." She said not a question but a statement. When I explained my background, she shook her head. "You have real talent, Rosabelle. Why are you hiding it in a pre-med program?" That question haunted me. Why was I hiding fear of disappointing my parents? Seemed like such a small reason to abandon something I loved, yet the thought of their disapproval paralyzed me. Sophomore year, I built my first significant app, a study tool, that helped visualize complex concepts using augmented reality. When it was featured on several tech blogs, I had to use a pseudonym to prevent my parents from finding out. My double life was becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Junior year brought everything to a breaking point. I was failing organic chemistry, while my latest app had just hit 100,000 users. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. I was miserable in my pre-med classes, but thriving in my secret coding world. One night after getting back yet another disappointing chemistry exam, I called my best friend Taylor. "I can't keep doing this," I said, staring at the big red D on my paper. "Then don't," Taylor replied simply. "Rose, you're torturing yourself to make your parents happy, and you're not even succeeding at it anymore." The next day, I met with my academic advisor, Dr. Martinez. When I explained my situation, she suggested taking a semester break to reassess my goals. "Many students find themselves on paths they didn't choose," she said kindly. "Taking time to find your own way isn't failure, it's wisdom." Thanksgiving break arrived, and I went home with a knot in my stomach. I'd rehearsed what to say to my parents dozens of times. On Thursday night after dinner, when we were sitting in the living room with cups of coffee, I took a deep breath. "Mom, Dad, I need to talk to you about school," I began, my voice shaking. "Is everything okay? Are your grades slipping?" Mom immediately asked. "Actually, that's part of what I wanted to discuss. I'm not doing well in my pre-med courses." I paused, gathering courage. "But I'm excelling in computer science. I'm thinking about changing my major." The silence that followed was deafening. Dad set down his coffee cup with deliberate slowness. "Playing with computers," he finally said, his voice dangerously quiet. "That's what you want to throw away generations of family tradition for." "It's not playing," I tried to explain. "It's programming, creating software that helps people. I've already developed apps that thousands of people use." "Apps?" Mom interjected, her voice rising. "Do you know how many sacrifices we've made for your education? How many hours your father has worked to give you opportunities?" "I appreciate everything you've done," I said, fighting back tears. "But medicine isn't my passion." "Passion doesn't pay bills," Dad snapped. "Doctors will always have jobs. What happens when your little app fad ends?" The conversation deteriorated from there. No matter what I said, they wouldn't listen. I returned to school feeling defeated but more determined than ever to forge my own path. I met with Professor Jackson and confided in her about the disastrous conversation with my parents. She listened without judgment. "Sometimes parents' fear for our future is expressed as control," she said. "But you have to live with the consequences of your choices, not them." She then offered me an incredible opportunity, a connection to a summer internship with a Silicon Valley company. It was exactly what I needed to prove to my parents that my passion could become a viable career. The next day, I went to the registrar's office and officially changed my major to computer science. The relief I felt was immediate and overwhelming. For the first time in years, I felt like I was being honest about who I was and what I wanted. My new classes challenged me in ways my pre-med courses never had. I was engaged, excited, and earning top marks without the grueling all-nighters that had characterized my previous semesters. This was what learning was supposed to feel like. During spring break, I started developing VitalSync, a health tracking app that used machine learning to predict potential health issues based on user-inputted symptoms and vitals. It combined my medical knowledge with my programming skills, creating something that could genuinely help people. As finals approached, anxiety set in. My parents would receive my semester grades, and they'd see that I'd changed majors without their permission. I considered calling them first, but kept putting it off, afraid of their reaction. The decision was taken out of my hands when they showed up unannounced at my dorm one Saturday in May. "We thought we'd surprise you before finals," Mom said, hugging me tightly. My stomach dropped. They'd want to see my study materials, ask about my classes. The truth would come out, and I wasn't prepared. Sure enough, Dad asked to see my schedule for next semester. "I want to make sure you're taking the right prerequisites for med school applications," he explained. About that, I started, but he was already scrolling through the university portal on his phone, which still had my login information saved from when he'd helped me register for classes freshman year. His face darkened. "What's this introduction to database management, advanced programming concepts?" He looked up, eyes flashing. "Computer science major." "What is this, Rosabelle?" The argument that followed was horrible. My roommate left discreetly as my father's voice rose, drawing attention from others in the hallway. I tried to show them my app, explain the internship offer, tell them about my 4.0 GPA and my new major. None of it mattered. They saw only betrayal. "If you continue with this nonsense," Dad finally said, "don't expect any more financial support from us." Summer break was a nightmare. I had to return home since I couldn't afford summer housing near campus. From the moment I arrived, the atmosphere was toxic. Mom barely spoke to me, communicating through terse notes left on the kitchen counter. Dad alternated between stony silence and explosive outbursts about my poor decisions. One evening at dinner, I tried again to show them why I was so passionate about my work. I'd prepared a business plan for VitalSync, complete with market research and potential revenue models. The healthcare app market is projected to reach $30 billion by next year, I explained, sliding the document across the table. VitalSync addresses gaps in existing products by providing AI-driven insights that could help users identify health concerns before they become serious. Dad glanced at the first page, then deliberately tore it in half. "This fantasy needs to end," he said, his voice frighteningly calm. "Either you return to the pre-med track this fall, or we're done supporting you. No tuition, no housing, no car insurance, nothing." "That's not fair," I protested, fighting back tears. "I've found something I'm good at, something that makes me happy. Why can't you at least try to understand?" "Because it's not what's best for you," Mom interjected, finally breaking her silence. "We've been in the world longer than you have. We know what leads to security and success." "But it's my life," I said, my voice cracking. "As long as we're paying for it, you'll do what we know is right," Dad countered. That night I overheard them talking in their bedroom. "She's throwing her life away on this computer nonsense," Dad said. "My colleagues' kids are in med school, law school, and ours wants to play video games for a living." "Maybe we should have been stricter with her," Mom suggested. "Let her have too much freedom in high school." Their fundamental misunderstanding of what I was doing, their refusal to even try to learn about it, solidified my resolve. I couldn't keep living a life they prescribed for me. The next morning I began secretly packing essential items, preparing for what I feared was inevitable. 3 days later, the final confrontation came. Dad had received an email from the university about fall tuition for the computer science program. "I thought we were clear," he thundered, cornering me in the kitchen. "You were supposed to switch back to pre-med." "I can't do that," I said, standing my ground despite my racing heart. "I've already accepted the Silicon Valley internship. My app is gaining users every day. This is my path, Dad. Please try to accept that." "No daughter of mine would waste her life on computer games," he spat. "Thomas," Mom said. But her tone wasn't disagreement, just a caution about his volume. "If you can't respect my choices, maybe I shouldn't be your daughter anymore," I said, immediately regretting the words but unable to take them back. Dad's face went completely cold. "Pack your things," he said. "Tonight." "You don't mean that," I whispered, looking to Mom for support. Her eyes were down, hands fidgeting with her napkin. "If you're not going to follow our guidance, then you're on your own," he continued. "Completely on your own." 2 hours later, I was putting my single suitcase into my car as rain poured down, soaking through my clothes. 10 years of academic achievements, trophies, and certificates remained in my bedroom. I was allowed only clothes and essential electronics. My mother watched from the doorway but said nothing as I got into my car. I could barely see through my tears as I drove to Taylor's apartment across town. My entire body shook with sobs at what had just happened. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had just cut me off completely. Taylor and her parents offered their couch, but their small apartment couldn't accommodate me for long. For 3 nights, I slept in my car in the Walmart parking lot, washing up in gas station bathrooms, and applying for jobs between desperate emails to my internship contacts, trying to arrange early housing. It was the lowest point of my life. I'd gone from a comfortable upper-middle-class existence to effectively homeless in the span of a week. I called Professor Jackson in tears, explaining my situation. "Come to San Francisco," she said without hesitation. I've got connections to a startup accelerator program. They provide basic housing for participants. It's not luxurious, but it's safe. 2 days later, I was driving across the country to California, everything I owned packed in my small Honda, heading toward an uncertain future, but finally free to pursue my true path. The accelerator program housing turned out to be a tiny room in a shared house with 5 other entrepreneurs. My bathroom was down the hall, shared with 3 others. The kitchen was always a mess. For someone who grew up in a home where everything had its place, the adjustment was jarring. I found a job at a nearby coffee shop, working morning shifts from 5 a.m. to 11, then spending afternoons and evenings coding. Most nights I got less than 4 hours of sleep, but the freedom to work on my own project made the exhaustion worthwhile. The first formal presentation of VitalSync to the accelerator program mentors didn't go well. They tore apart my interface, questioned my algorithm choices, and challenged my market research. This health prediction feature could create liability issues, said one mentor, a former healthcare executive. And your user flow is unintuitive. I left that meeting fighting tears, wondering if my parents had been right all along. Maybe I wasn't cut out for this world. That's when I met Sophia, a successful tech entrepreneur who had sold her cybersecurity company for millions. Unlike the other mentors, she saw potential in VitalSync. "You're solving a real problem," she told me over coffee. "But execution matters as much as vision. I'll help you rebuild this from the ground up if you're willing to put in the work." For the next 2 months, I practically lived at my laptop. I redesigned VitalSync, entirely adding an AI-driven insights engine that could identify patterns in users' health data. Sophia connected me with medical professionals who helped ensure the advice the app provided was accurate and liability protected. My savings dwindled rapidly. The coffee shop barely covered rent and utilities, leaving almost nothing for food. I lost 15 pounds skipping meals to pay for server costs and development tools. My clothes hung loose and dark circles became permanent fixtures under my eyes. On my parents' anniversary, I tried calling home, hoping that time had softened their stance. The call went straight to voicemail. I left a message wishing them a happy anniversary, telling them I was doing well in California. They never called back. The other entrepreneurs in the program became my surrogate family. We shared meals when someone could afford to cook, celebrated small victories, and supported each other through setbacks. Many had similar stories of family members who didn't understand or support their entrepreneurial ambitions. After 3 months of nonstop work, VitalSync was ready for beta testing. We launched with a small group of users, primarily friends and connections from the accelerator program. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with users particularly impressed by the predictive health insights. Unexpectedly, an angel investor attended our mid-program demo day. After my presentation, he approached with interest. "I think you're onto something here," he said, handing me his card. "Let's talk next week." That meeting resulted in a $50,000 seed investment, enough for me to quit the coffee shop and focus entirely on VitalSync. I rented a small studio apartment, no longer needing to share a bathroom or kitchen with strangers. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine, paid for with my work. I assembled a small development team, 2 talented programmers I'd met in the accelerator program who believed in VitalSync's potential. We worked out of a shared workspace, gradually improving the app and expanding our beta user base. The breakthrough came when several doctors started recommending VitalSync to their patients. Medical professionals appreciated the app's ability to track symptoms over time, providing more accurate information during appointments than patients' often faulty memories. Our user base grew exponentially, eventually causing our servers to crash under the unexpected volume. My team and I worked 72 hours straight, barely stopping to eat or sleep, rebuilding our infrastructure to handle the growth. The crisis passed, and VitalSync emerged stronger. Then came the tweet that changed everything. Dr. James Morrison, a celebrity doctor with millions of followers, posted, "Finally a health app that actually helps both patients and doctors. Check out @VitalSync app." Within hours, our user count doubled. Within days, it quadrupled. Then came the email from HealthStream Inc. one of the largest health technology companies in the country. We've been impressed with VitalSync and would like to discuss potential collaboration opportunities. I assumed they wanted to explore partnership options, perhaps integrating VitalSync with their existing products. When I arrived at their gleaming San Francisco headquarters for the meeting, I was escorted to a conference room where 5 executives waited. "We don't want to just partner with VitalSync," their CEO explained. "We want to acquire it and hire you as lead developer for our consumer applications division." The offer left me speechless. They wanted to buy my app, the creation I'd sacrificed everything for. Part of me wanted to refuse, immediately protective of my baby, but another part recognized the incredible opportunity to scale VitalSync's impact beyond what I could achieve independently. The next week was a whirlwind of negotiations. The accelerator program connected me with a lawyer who specialized in tech acquisitions, explaining that first offers were almost always lowballs. "They'll try to dazzle you with big numbers," she warned. "But remember, they wouldn't be interested if they didn't think your technology was worth substantially more." Sure enough, HealthStream's initial offer was $800,000, a life-changing amount for someone who had recently been sleeping in her car, but far below what my lawyer thought VitalSync was worth. "Thank you for your interest," I said during our second meeting, summoning confidence I didn't entirely feel. "But given our growth trajectory and unique technology, we believe that undervalues VitalSync significantly." The HealthStream executives exchanged glances. They clearly hadn't expected pushback from a 25-year-old solo founder. They increased their offer to $1.2 million. After consulting with my lawyer and Sophia, I made a counteroffer $1.5 million, plus a senior development position with significant creative control and equity options in HealthStream. "We'll need to take this to the board," their CEO said, his poker face giving nothing away. The next 48 hours were the longest of my life. I barely slept, alternating between excitement at the potential deal and fear that I'd pushed too hard and lost the opportunity entirely. Then came the email. "The board has approved your terms. We look forward to welcoming you to the HealthStream family." I signed the contract the following day, my hand shaking slightly as I wrote my signature. $1.5 million minus taxes, and the accelerator program's equity share was now mine. As I wrote my name, I couldn't help but think of my parents, wondering what they would say if they could see me now. That night, Taylor flew in from Michigan, and we celebrated with Sophia and my small development team at an upscale restaurant in the city. For the first time in months, I ordered without checking prices, toasting to the journey that had brought me here. "To being kicked out," I said, raising my glass. "Best thing that ever happened to me." 2 weeks later, I moved into a proper apartment in a doorman building. My first paycheck from HealthStream hit my bank account, adding to the acquisition money. The financial anxiety that had been my constant companion for months finally lifted. Several tech publications ran articles about the acquisition. "HealthStream acquires VitalSync in $1 million deal," read one headline. Another featured a profile of me describing my journey from medical school dropout to successful tech entrepreneur. The Westfield Gazette. Our hometown newspaper picked up the story, "Local doctor's daughter makes good in Silicon Valley." I knew my parents must have seen it. Sure enough, a few days later, my phone rang with my father's number. My heart pounded as I answered. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Rosabelle." Dad's voice sounded different, lacking the authority it usually carried. "Your mother and I saw the article in the paper." "I figured you might," I replied, unsure what else to say. "We've been thinking about things," he continued awkwardly. "Perhaps we were hasty in our judgment." I said nothing, waiting. "We'd like to see you," he finally said. "Maybe come visit your new place in San Francisco." The sudden interest, after months of silence, coming only after public recognition of my success, wasn't lost on me. "I'm pretty busy with the transition to HealthStream," I said carefully. "Maybe in a few months." "Of course," he said quickly. "We understand. We're proud of you, Rosabelle." Those ones I'd sought for so long now rang hollow. Their pride was in my success, not in my courage or determination. not in me as a person. Thank you, I said simply. I should go. I have a meeting. We ended the call with vague promises to speak again soon. I sat on my new couch, looking out at the San Francisco skyline, realizing that I no longer needed their validation. I'd found it within myself. HealthStream held a company announcement party to introduce me and the VitalSync technology to the entire organization. I prepared a short speech about the app's development and future potential. As I was about to go on stage, I spotted them in the back of the room, my parents looking out of place in their conservative Michigan attire amid the casual tech crowd. After my speech, they approached awkwardly. Mom hugged me tightly, whispering, "We're so sorry, sweetheart," into my ear. Dad shook my hand formally, then pulled me into a stiff embrace. "Your app is impressive," he said as if conceding a long-standing argument. "The medical applications are significant." Their apologies focused on having underestimated the potential of my career choice, rather than the pain they'd caused by rejecting me. It was about being wrong about technology, not about having failed as parents when I needed their support most. I was polite but distant, introducing them to my colleagues and showing them around the HealthStream offices. Something fundamental had changed in our relationship. I no longer sought their approval, and they no longer held power over my choices. The next 6 months at HealthStream were transformative. Under the company's resources and reach, VitalSync grew to over 2 million users. I led a team of 15 developers, many of whom had similar stories of pursuing tech careers against family expectations. With my new financial security, I bought a small house in Oakland, a modest 2-bedroom compared to what I could have afforded, but perfect for my needs. I furnished it with care, creating the warm, inviting space I'd always wanted. I started a mentorship program for young women interested in health technology, remembering how crucial Professor Jackson's guidance had been in my own journey. Watching these young programmers grow in confidence and skill became one of my greatest joys. My work gained industry recognition, culminating in being named Healthcare Innovator of the Year by a leading tech publication. The award ceremony was in New York, and to my surprise, my parents flew in to attend. They sat stiffly in their formal attire, clearly out of place among the tech industry crowd, but undeniably proud as I accepted the award. At dinner afterward, they enthusiastically praised my accomplishments, seemingly having forgotten their earlier dismissal of my computer games. Our relationship remained awkward. We met for occasional dinners when they visited California, or when business brought me back to the Midwest. The conversations stayed superficial, focusing on my professional achievements, rather than addressing the pain of the past. Through a HealthStream networking event, I met Ryan, a developer working on machine learning applications for medical imaging. Unlike my parents, he understood my passion for technology immediately. Our relationship developed slowly, built on mutual respect and shared interests. At HealthStream, I spearheaded a new initiative to expand VitalSync's reach to underserved rural communities, areas like my hometown, where access to specialists was limited. The project became my personal mission, a way to bridge my past with my present. I used part of my earnings to establish a scholarship fund for students pursuing non-traditional career paths in technology. The application specifically asked for essays about overcoming family resistance to their chosen field. Reading these stories, I realized how common my experience had been. Westridge University invited me back as a guest lecturer in both the computer science and pre-med departments. Professor Jackson introduced me to her current students as an example of finding success through authentic choices. The university president approached me about joining an advisory board for their technology education program. "We need voices like yours," she explained, "to help us understand how to better support students whose passions don't align with family expectations." In a twist of irony, the medical school asked me to give a commencement address about innovation in healthcare technology. Standing at the podium, addressing future doctors, I couldn't help but think about how differently my life might have turned out if I'd followed my parents' prescribed path. As my professional responsibilities grew, I recognized the need to address my personal healing. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma, working through the anger and hurt that still surfaced in quiet moments. The therapy helped me establish healthier boundaries with my parents. I became more comfortable declining their increasing requests to visit or attend family functions when I needed space. A breakthrough came during a video call when my father hesitantly asked technical questions about VitalSync's algorithm. It was the first time he'd shown genuine interest in understanding my work, rather than just acknowledging its success. A month later, my mother confided that she had always secretly admired my determination. "I gave up my legal career for family expectations," she admitted. "Part of me envied your courage to choose differently." These small moments opened the door to a more authentic relationship, one based on who we really were rather than who they had expected me to be. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was enough. 2 years after signing the HealthStream contract, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The financial success, while significant, had ultimately been the least important aspect of my experience. The true victory was in discovering my own resilience and defining success on my terms. The relationship with my parents continued to evolve. After months of individual therapy, I suggested we try family counseling together. Surprisingly, they agreed. Those sessions revealed layers of family dynamics I'd never understood. During one particularly emotional session, my father disclosed that his own parents had forced him into medicine when he'd wanted to study architecture. "I thought I was protecting you from uncertainty," he admitted. "Instead, I became the same kind of parent I had resented." My mother revealed her deep regrets about abandoning her legal career, confessing that her insistence on my becoming a doctor had been partly motivated by her desire to see me achieve what she had given up. These revelations didn't erase the past hurt, but they helped me understand their actions came from places of fear and unresolved pain rather than malice. Forgiveness became possible not because they deserved it, but because I needed it to move forward. Last Christmas, they visited my Oakland home. For the first time since before the fallout, we shared a meal filled with genuine laughter. Mom brought old photo albums, and we reminisced about happier childhood memories. Dad asked about my current projects without any underlying judgment. The launch party for VitalSync 2.0 marked another milestone. My parents attended not as uncomfortable outsiders, but as supportive family members genuinely interested in understanding the technology and meeting my colleagues. Inspired by my experience, I established the Authentic Paths Foundation, supporting students rejected by their families for pursuing unconventional careers. Beyond financial assistance, the foundation created a community where these young people could find the emotional support I had lacked. Through running the foundation, I met countless others with stories similar to mine. Parents who couldn't see beyond traditional definitions of success, children struggling to balance family expectations with personal authenticity. These connections reinforced that my experience, while painful, was not unique. Working with these students helped me realize that my parents' validation had never been necessary for my success or happiness. Their approval, once so crucial to my self-worth, had become just one perspective among many, not the defining voice in my life. I learned to forgive them without forgetting the importance of self-advocacy. Our relationship would never be what it might have been without the rupture, but we were building something new based on who we actually were rather than idealized expectations. This journey highlighted the paradox many of us face wanting family approval while breaking from family expectations. It's a delicate balance between honoring our roots and growing in our own direction. My TED Talk, "Finding Success Through Authentic Choices," has now been viewed over 2 million times. The most common feedback I receive is from people who found courage to pursue their own paths after hearing my story. The pain of rejection became purpose as I channeled my experience into helping others navigate similar challenges. The foundation expanded its work partnering with universities to create support systems for students facing family pressure. Looking to the future, I plan to grow the foundation while continuing to innovate in health technology. VitalSync now helps millions of users worldwide, far exceeding any impact I might have made as a reluctant doctor. The peace I've found comes from living truthfully, despite the consequences that choice once carried. The relationship with my parents, while still complicated, has evolved into one of mutual respect rather than authority and obedience. What I gained through this difficult journey proved more valuable than what was temporarily lost. Success came not from external validation, but from alignment with my authentic self. I often tell the students in our foundation family, love is important, but self-love is essential. The courage to choose your own path, even when it means walking it alone for a while, is what ultimately leads to your truest success. If my story resonates with you, I'd love to hear about your own experiences navigating family expectations. Have you ever had to choose between pleasing others and following your passion? What helped you make that difficult decision? Share in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button if you found value in my journey. Remember, the most authentic path is rarely the easiest, but it's always the most rewarding. Thank you for listening, and I hope my story gives you courage to embrace your own truth.